Governors of the 19 northern states are meeting in Kaduna over the rising wave of kidnapping, banditry and also violent crimes across the region. The emergency session is holding at the Sir Kashim Ibrahim Government House after last Saturday's postponed meeting. Discussions are centered on a unified strategy to tackle the worsening insecurity affecting many communities. Governor Zubasani of Kaduna, Mohammed Umar Bago of Niger, Inuwa Yahaya of Gombe, Umar Namadi of Jigawa, Daud Lawal of Zamfara, Mai Malabuni of Yobe, Nasser Idris of Kebbi, and Muhammad Fintiri of Adamawa are among those present. Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule is represented by his deputy, while other states have also sent delegates. Traditional leaders, including the Sultan of Sokoto Alhaji Sa'ad Abubakar III, are part of closed-door meetings aimed at forging a coordinated response to insecurity. From Kano State, let's quickly bring in Mansur Kurugu, security and conflict resolution expert. Mansur, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Mansur, what in your view are the most urgent security measures these governors should be prioritizing right now to better protect schools and vulnerable communities?
Hi, thank you very much. I think I struggled to hear your question. If you wouldn't mind, can you come again, please?
All right.
Thank you.
To summarize, I'm asking what you think the governors, as they gather now in Kaduna, should be discussing about. What should they be prioritizing?
Thank you very much. I think it should be a matter of identifying. So first of all, the meeting is timely, and I think there is really an urgent need for them to start prioritizing a regional security framework rather than standalone state security framework, especially with this new surge of the banditry and other terrorist activities within the entire region. And I think it would be good if, beyond looking at using weapons and boots, they also look at all of those developmental challenges that are compounded and make the region more vulnerable, to have so many young persons on the streets and in the bushes, and to be easily recruited into these organized violent groups. So I think the priority should be discussing a regional approach to addressing the insecurity using multifaceted approaches.
Mansur, that's a very interesting answer there, but how exactly does the regional approach differ from what we have now with the states tackling the issues themselves?
So if you look at it now, first of all, the region is a very homogeneous region where you will hardly be able to distinguish between a person from one state to another. And again, some of the states in the region are having a lot of large landmass that are ungoverned. And because there are no physical borders or boundaries that can separate one state from another, you can see a movement from one state to another by these bandits and criminals. I'll give you an example. Until of recent, in Kano State, there are very few instances of this organized banditry and this criminality for economy. But recently, due to the operation in Katsina State, you can see how these bandits are now moving to neighboring local governments in Kano State. And you can also as well see how bandits do move people when they kidnap them from one state to another, or even distribute them in between different states, which simply means they have a network across this state in the region. So addressing the problem in one state is more like pushing them to another state that is vulnerable and they can have a place where they can hide. So it is very important at this level to be able to come up with a comprehensive approach at the level of a region in which Katsina, Sokoto, Kaduna, Kebbi, Zamfara, and Jigawa as well are all working together to safeguard their own communities, the rural communities, those border communities where these terrorists used to explore.
So Mansur, you said that these bandits, these criminals, often take advantage of the network that they have, moving from one state to the other. So in a case where they move into a state that doesn't have as good a capacity as the previous state, how can that challenge be addressed? Because these states all have different challenges, have different capacities across the northern states.
Yeah, so we are not saying let's have a blanket or one-size-fits approach. But what we are saying is let's each and every state work in relation to another state. However, identifying specific challenges of each state. And again, there is really need for them to deploy what we call civilian security approach to this whole situation, where they mobilize the community members, they train them, they build them, their capacity, they get them to work together, build a trust between them and the security agencies. And with that, you can see how information from Kano would help protect an incident probably in Katsina or in Jigawa or in Kaduna or in another state. So it's very important at this point for these governors to start looking at, one, their similarities, and then of course their differences, and then see how they can work together with, community members and all the institutions around to provide a lasting solution. And I'm looking at them to work around establishing a very formidable regional early warning and early response system. Not early warning and early response system that will safeguard one particular state, but to have it across all the region in such a way that if there is an information of an incident in Katsina, everybody within the region will be aware of that. If there is a movement of a troop from one place to another, every state should be aware, and they should have a framework where the security agencies are also speaking to one another, the governors are speaking to one another, the institutions that they may have established, including the traditional institutions that are already exist now, always talking to one another. So the system has to work together. It shouldn't be a silo system from one state to another.
Okay.
That can no longer work in northern Nigeria, especially in the northwest.
Especially in the north, there's this relationship between northern leaders and the people. So I'm wondering, because this meeting also involves the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Sa'ad Abubakar III. So I'm wondering exactly what role traditional leaders have in trying to restore peace, in strengthening the communities, and also helping with intelligence networks.
So as we know, traditional rulers are more like the sort of leaders that are more connected to the grassroots. And until today, traditional leaders do really have, that stakeholdership in their own communities. So in these kind of situations where government are using, force and all of that, trying to address the ongoing insecurity, there is a need to have trusted individuals within the communities, like traditional leaders, to keep talking to the community members, to keep sensitizing them, to keep mobilizing them. That is one approach. Secondly, sometimes if, for example, now that we have our younger ones from this Niger state that are in captivity, while we have government and security agencies are putting pressure, there has to be a back-channeling process. And traditional rulers can really play a very important role in those back-channeling process. While there are so much pressure going on to these bandits and these kidnappers, let there be a back-channeling process where certain negotiations can happen so that these young persons can now be rescued, and then of course work together with these traditional leaders, identify community structures that would be useful, in gathering information, intelligence gathering, sharing a very important, what they call actionable intelligence with the security agencies to work together. And also there is a need to work with our local security apparatus, like our vigilante and all of those people. They should be useful in our providing early response in certain situations. Okay, and also they understand the communities and these bushes and all of these routes where these criminals are utilizing, probably more than the formal security actors that we do have. So it's very important if you are able to work with the security leaders and then the traditional leaders at the same time to be able to provide a lasting solution in annihilating these criminals and bringing an end to this banditry in the region.
Mansur, lately we've found out that these criminals, these bandits, are young people. They've resorted to social media and you can see who they are from there. And while it's a criminal offense, I'd like to still see banditry as a symptom because it's mostly young people. So I'm wondering what long-term policies you think could be essential to address the deeper issues that push young people into banditry and also armed criminality.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This is a very important question. And I can tell you, this is one of the key areas where our government kept on missing it. Every day when there is an insecurity, we used to tell the authorities that this is a byproduct of a poor governance, of lack of development, of so many years of social biases, poor parenting, lack of proper education, and all of those opportunities that young persons need to survive, to express themselves, and all of that. However, the security agencies, our government always think of using kinetic or non-kinetic approach. But I mean, to be able to address this issue decisively, we really have to go back into working on those issues that these young persons have missed. For example, those opportunities. For example, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to be able to do a business, an opportunity, to express themselves. But what are we doing? We are still providing the same sort of leadership, sometimes even worse, the kind of leadership that are even making this banditry, more appealing to young persons. We are still having so many young persons that do not have access to education or any opportunity. A lot of them are still living, without any direction and idea. So until our governors, our, stakeholders, these leaders that we have across all levels come to work together and agree that this terrorism that we're seeing are beyond kinetic or non-kinetic. They are developmental challenges. They are human challenges. They are livelihood challenges. Until we accepted them as that and treated them as this, trust me, even if we will address or we will annihilate or we will kill all the bandits today, the recipe that brought them together in the first place are still there, and we will see more groups forming and we will see more organized crimes happening. But if we are able to go with them, with the boats and men, and then at the same time, government and every other person work together, to address this issue, we might have a lasting peace in the region. But without doing that, trust me, we are just addressing, the surface. We are just doing a window dressing, but the main issue, the root causes, the problem is still there, and it will continue to dominate. It will continue to manifest. It will continue to be, everywhere in the country.
Mansur, I want to say thank you very much. I hear you there, boots on the ground and consolidated effort when it comes to policies that affect young people. Mansur, thank you for joining us.